first 2 or 3 hours, the Earth shrinks to about as small as it gets, as you can tell any difference. And from then on, when you're looking back at it, it looks like a picture. There's really not enough dimensions to see anything but something that's flat. It was very strange. It looked almost like something out of science fiction. You didn't know whether to believe it or not. But I can tell you that we did it we didn't use mirrors. It was something.
We see it on our monitor, too.
Roger.
People will just love being in weightlessness. It is just delightful. It's like swimming underwater with nothing to push against, and it's just a wonderful feeling. Once we get enough people up there who experience it, will probably be difficult to get them back, really.
You might notice the dynamics here. I just do whatever he says.
Hey, Tom, the flight surgeon here wants you to be sure to log all your exercise.
I got you. That's perfect zero gravity there, boy. I tell you, it's nothing like it.
10, this is Houston. Is there, Roger, is there any sort of air currents there affecting it you can feel?
3 men in a claustrophobic chamber 250,000 miles from Earth, living cheek by jowl in a weightless world, day and night. But it was a small price to pay for what they were about to see.
3 minutes, going over the hill. You go for undocking, and we'll see you around the other side. Roger. Roger.
This was it, the dress rehearsal for a moon landing. Stafford and Cernan undocked from the command module and descended to within 9 miles of the lunar surface, leaving John Young alone in the module, orbiting the moon.
It's very different from what you see looking through a telescope, traveling over the lunar surface at about 1 mile a second, looking down. Everything is different. The rills are like rivers. There are certain craters at many places on the moon that are bright, speckly, rayed craters that stand out just like stoplights, so that you can go around the moon and recognize, once you get to know it, just where you're at on the surface. In fact, much easier than you can recognize where you are on the Earth, unless you're a real student of geography.
Young watched the Earth rise, knowing that he'd been tantalizingly close to the moon, and yet he hadn't landed. He must surely have felt frustrated.
There was some discussion at the time that they wanted to land Apollo 10 on the moon, but the feeling was that we just didn't know enough to do that. So we took the next thing, and I was happy to be on the next mission that I could get on. And I think everybody else in the office was the same way. I don't know, it just never would have occurred to me to want it to have been any place else than where I was on Apollo 10.
Back on Earth, just 2 months later, in July of '69, Houston, home of mission control and home of astronauts, had become the space capital of the world. Neil Armstrong on Apollo 11, the very next mission, had walked on the moon. The Americans had won the space race. In the astronauts' office, John Young was given command of Apollo 16, but he had 3 years to wait.
Sequence is starting. Engines are armed. 5, 4,
The engine's now building up to 7.7 million pounds.
all engines running. Launch commit and liftoff.
We have a launch commit and we have a liftoff. The swing arm is moving back. We cleared the tower.
Roger, clear the tower.
Houston is now controlling.
Oh, you have good thrust in all 5. Roger.
Pitch and roll program started.
Roger.
16 now maneuvering to its proper flight path attitude. Mark 27 seconds.
The 1972 Apollo 16 mission was dogged by technical problems from the start, and right up to the last moment, there was a real possibility that the landing itself would have to be abandoned. But finally, in the lunar module with Charles Duke, John Young headed for the Descartes Plateau and the greatest moment of his life, a landing on the moon. And this time, the coolest man in space couldn't suppress his excitement.
Okay, go for landing.
42 LPD. Okay, fuel is good, 10%. That comes the shadow. Okay, down at 3.
50 feet, down at 4. Give me one click up. You're backing up slightly. Okay, 2 down. Stand by for contact. Come on, let her down. You level off. Let her on down. Okay, 6%, plenty fat. Contact. Ooh. Wow! Oh, man! Look at that! Engine arm. He said it's command override. Okay.
Recalling that moment 10 years later, Young is almost unbelievably downbeat.
Well, if you know NASA, you knew that as soon as we stepped on the lunar surface, we were about 20 minutes behind in our timeline, and I thought, I don't know how we're going to catch up. But on the first exploration out there, we managed to catch up, set up a very complex science station, and do a lot of work on the surface.
Come on out here and give me a salute. Big Navy salute. Off the ground, on the floor. There we go. It's really some crater.
As you come around there, there's a rock in the near field on this rim that has some white on the top of it. We'd like you to pick it up as a grab sample.
This one right here?
That's it.
This one right here?
That's it. You got it right there.
The area at Descartes was really beautiful. There were a couple of craters, North Ray Crater and South Ray Crater, that had beautiful rays that had thrown themselves right across the surface. And it was just something. The browns and the hues of the surface were, and the extreme whites were just something to behold when you're standing there looking at it. None of the camera pictures that we took even begin to grab any of the contrasts that you could see with the eye.
Look at the size of that biggie. It is a biggie, isn't it? It may be further away than we think. No, it's not very far. It was just right beyond you.
And we better press on for the big boulder.
You couldn't tell how far away something was until you looked back at the lunar module because you had no perspective. It's very easy to see from the topography where you were going, but to estimate sizes of things was just unbelievable.
Well, Tony, that's your house rock right there. Very good. Don't get too near the edge of that thing.
The rover itself weighed over 1,200 pounds with a crew in there, but on the moon that's only 200 pounds. So the maximum speed of the rover was about 10 kilometers an hour. But if you got going 10 kilometers an hour and you cut the wheels, you'd slide along sideways or you'd slide backwards. The thing that really saved us was that there was nobody coming from the other direction about 55 miles an hour. You knew when you were up there, you're all by yourself, and it was exciting.
Man, I'll tell you, Andy's never seen a driver like this. Okay, when he hits the craters and starts bouncing, it's when he gets his rooster tail. He makes sharp turns. Boy, Houston, the beauty of this place is...
What about walking on the moon? Was that difficult?
I think one of these days space stations will have some gravity field like that because that's very pleasant. It's enough so that you can do literally amazing feats. We could stand at the foot of the lunar module with our pressure suit on, which weighed 370 pounds, pick up a 100-pound sack of lunar rocks in one hand and jump flat-footed up to the second rung of the lunar module, which was about 6 feet off the ground. When you practice this in one gravity on the Earth with your pressure suit on and all that 370 pounds of weight, you could barely lift your big toe. It's really nice to be up there.
When you look up these days at the Texas moon, do you sometimes find it hard to believe you've been out there?
Yeah, sure. It's difficult to believe. I'm just sorry that we don't have a permanent inhabited base up there right now operating because from a geological and geophysical standpoint, I think the moon is one of the coming high frontiers. In the next 10 or 15 years, I expect we will.
About 10 minutes ahead and we're ready to move out.
We'll get it up there. See how nice and leisurely it's been? That's the way it should be, getting ready for ascent.
10 seconds.
What a ride, what a ride.
Ryan, you go at 1.
Roger, looking good here.
Every second had been recorded by TV cameras, but only an astronaut could know what John Young had really seen.
I think we've seen as much in 10 days as most people see in 10 lifetimes.
Did you discover God up there?
No, I don't think so.
No sense of awe, wonder?
No.
Why
This is-
not?
huh?
You think?
Well, because I think that the way things are in space is the way they are, and I think that's a good thing. I think if people have to go into space to discover God, they've got some other kind of problem. Yeah,
You can find him back on Earth.
or anywhere.
If the only miraculous thing in space was American technology, it was a miracle that was already running down. Even as Apollo 16 drifted towards splashdown, Washington was putting a dampener on the space program. For all the nation's applause, Young and his fellow astronauts would soon be grounded. Within 7 months, a depressing calm had settled over NASA. The Apollo program was over. The unused rockets were mounted like stuffed trophies in NASA's backyard. Yesterday's super technology was converted, overnight it seemed, into a museum. By the end of 1972, for a society addicted to novelty, the thrill had gone. Washington knew it and closed its coffers. There was the distant promise of something called the SHUTTLE, a prototype spaceship. But one by one, the astronauts were pulling out. Except for the man his colleagues still called the mysterious John Young. He'd stayed with the program, and they'd made him chief astronaut. Now, with space rookie Bob Crippen, he was in training for the maiden flight of the shuttle, the rocket-driven plane that could be taken into orbit and brought back to Earth again, a spacecraft that would be reusable.
Of course, not a whole lot you can say about UHF. And our electrical system, we don't get down into diodes and garbage like that. We do just talk to the overall schematic.
This time, Young wouldn't be just a passenger on a rocket. He'd be piloting a 100-ton machine, pioneering a cargo route into space.
You can recharge it on orbit, and you may have to jack up the cryo system to get that.
We're out of 18,500 feet, making a right turn into runway 22 at Edwards Air Force Base.
Each system is different, and if you like engineering, it's a lot of fun. It's mostly, if you don't like to fool with systems and you don't like grungy engineering jobs, I don't think people would care much being an astronaut, because that's what it's all about.
Okay, altimeter's locked on. We're at a 5,000, the gear coming on.
We did it for about 1,000, 1,100 hours before the first space shuttle mission.
280 knots.
Look at all those switches in there. Now, Crip's got to know what each and every one of those switches does when it's working right. And I've got to know about all those over on the left-hand side, and we've got to be able to work them in real time. And if they fail, we've got to know what to do. It may sound exciting to some people, but it's really pretty dull stuff. You're really busy, always doing some useful activity. And, you know, space flight, at least in a test phase, is really an expensive proposition. So you try to fill up your working days with test objectives to perform. And the system inherently wants to do more than it's ever possible for you to do in a 24-hour day, much less a 16-hour day.
7,000 to go.
Roger, 50 knots. 30.
6,500 to go.
You got her.
0.
Okay. We'll do a reset.
Okay.
It was a relief for Young to get back in the air, although others have called this converted Boeing the Vomit Comet. When the plane went into a parabolic dive, Young had just 40 weightless seconds to escape from his spacesuit. He'd repeat the exercise 60 times.
Water connector locked.
Go.
Comm umbilical connector locked.
Young was turning back the clock nearly 20 years, going through the training grind of a rookie astronaut, a daunting assignment for a 50-year-old who now needed glasses.
You'll find we all get to wear those things there sooner or later. Those were special glasses so that you could see better underwater.
Adjustment. John, you still reading us on?
About that, I can see them critters. Oh, my goodness.
That little device right there, you hold yourself on the spacecraft with.